And yeah, it says I'm live, so might as well. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay. So iTunes was exceptionally lazy this week, so I did not get a chance to actually watch this episode until yesterday. So I decided, and since I've got a lot of things brewing right now in Narcotic Casserole with as far as my Christmas programming, I just really did not have it in me to film this and cut it together and then spend all that time uploading. And I believe it or not, I do lose sleep uploading this to try to get them out in a timely manner. So much like iTunes, I decided to be lazy my own self. So, anyway, so hold on a second. There we go, much better. So here we are. Oh, hey Triv, how you doing? So yeah, here to start. Triv, did you get a chance to watch the finale yet? Waiting for response. So yeah, we're getting into my take on the finale of Doctor Who Flux, the sixth part of the series, but it is not the last of Jody Whittaker. We still have three, I believe, three or four more specials. Of course, we got the New Year's special coming up, and looking forward to it. I will say I haven't had a time where I've been disappointed by Chibnall's take on the Daleks, so I'm good with that. Intrigued to see, and uh, we'll see how that goes from here. Now, I've been saying pretty. But I'm here to be supportive. Yes, you could be supportive. You could support fine. Just don't be surprised when I spoil you. That's the part where I'm gonna have to break your heart. So I hope you'll just go la 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 when need be. So anyway, yes, the Doctor Who finale, The Vanquishers, which sounds like a pirate story as opposed to a Doctor Who story. But this is the finale. The cliffhanger, as I said in my review of Survivors of the Flux, was pretty much the standard. Oh, we're going to kill you, Doctor, but you know they're not going to kill. And lo and behold, I was right. They did. The Doctor not only averted death, but probably in one of the most anticlimactic ways possible. She did. But the anticlimax of her narrow escape did lead to what ended up becoming the linchpin for one of the things that made the episode incredibly entertaining. Specifically, she winds up getting splintered three ways. So it's a good device in order to have the Doctor assist in helping the companions take care of everything, because for as able-bodied as the companions have been, especially in the wake of everything that's gone on in this last season, you still kind of need the Doctor, because the Doctor's the only one who's really going to understand how things are going to go. So you get the vibe Chibnall is probably in the writer's room like going, well, how am I supposed to get, I need the Doctor there to explain everything, and how's it going to work? It was like, well, fuck it, she's going to be splintered three ways. And so, what is very obviously a narrative get out of jail free card, consisting of classic Doctor Who nonsense about the show. It's the kind of nonsense that I kind of enjoyed from Stephen Moffat, so I will allow it. And to boot, it did kind of segue into some really fun moments with Jodie Whittaker, specifically her talking to herself, and even kind of getting a little like, ooh, I kind of like her. But I like how she's flirting with herself, but then later on she's like, oh, God, such attitude. I was like, I kind of liked how she kept changing modes as far as how she felt about having different version of herself, because this is not the first time we've seen duplicates of the Doctor sparring with each other. I mean, you had the two Tennants, and then you had the two Matt Smiths. There's a part of me wishing we had seen two Capaldis. I can only imagine how incredible that could have been. But the two Jodies was actually kind of adorable, and I kind of had fun watching that. And big shout out to Jodie in this episode in particular. There were a lot of subtle moments which I really felt she knocked out of the park, especially with the ending. With the I'll say the best scene is her last scene with Yaz in the episode, where um, you could really see writ large on her face that she really badly wants to tell her everything. But there's a part that you kind of get and even though Yaz is saying, you can tell me anything, there's still a sense that the Doctor's like, I don't know if I truly can, because I don't know if you'll ever understand what I'm going through. And and there's this, and of course, the Doctor's notoriously always been very cagey and very secretive, and I like that it leads into the final, moment with the Doctor with the fob watch, which was established in the prior episode. The only if they have bagpipes and kilts, we've established this. For reference, definitely go to Trivial Theater, subscribe to Trivial Theater, you owe it to yourself. And for a little bit of self-aggrandizement, watch our episode, the episode she did on Lair of the White Worm, where we have discovered the most sexiest thing in the world is that. So, the world is not ready for that much sexiness, but you know what? Watch at your own risk. Um, so yeah, you're killing me. You're getting ahead of me there. But yeah, I am getting ahead of myself here. So because as we determined in Survivors of the Flux, there is a lot that they were going to have to wrap up. I mean, of course, you got the whole thing with the Centaurans, you got the whole thing with Swarm and Azure, you've got the Grand Serpent and his machinations going on, and of course, and you have this globe-trotting adventure that was going on with Yaz, Dan, and Jericho. It's like, how do you wrap all that up? Now, the one thing that actually makes me happy about this finale, because frankly, if you're doing a finale of a TV series, yes, you do want to wrap up a lot of the sentient plot points, so the things that are like the most important, but you kind of want to give us just a little bit of something to keep going later on. And while he doesn't do it as gracefully as in my opinion Moffat did during his run, I will definitely say he definitely left enough that makes us want to keep watching from then on in. But I will say the ways that they wrapped up certain stuff here I really dug. I will say in particular I loved everything with the Centaurans in this episode. The Centaur Chibnall really did right by the Centaurans in this season. He definitely did a great job making them this force to be reckoned with, but he also did a great job really hitting home how brilliant they are at tactics, and just the idea that they are going to exploit all the other evil species' desire for survival, especially the Daleks and the Cybermen, because it is true, Daleks and the Cybermen are all about that survival game. They want to stay alive, and they definitely want to survive the flux because it will basically mean that there's not much left. There's not much universe left to conquer. So therefore, as is their modus operandi, they will be the superior beings of the universe. As you do, there's a lot of real estate, and problem is when you conquer the universe, it's useless because you can't sell it to anybody. Douglas Adams. So so you find out that that's the Centaurans' big game, is that they're going to take advantage of the flux. They're going to lure all the other species to a spot, and then they're going to betray them. So the flux will eradicate the Daleks and the Cybermen, leaving the Centaurans finally, at long last, being the superior species. So freaking great tactics, and I really dug that. But even more so, and this again, this is something that's carried through really, really well through Chibnall's entire run, and I don't want I suppose Chibnall's just really good at finding the right people for this, but again, the production value that he's been able to put into the show has been staggering. If there's anything that has been great throughout his run that I've just been consistently awestruck with, is just the scale he's taken the show. And I will say the final destruction of not just the Dalek and Cyber fleets, but also the Centauran fleet. That is just that was worthy of some of the stuff we've seen in the recent Star Wars movies and some of the Marvel movies. But because I was just like, but even more so impressive because again, this is a TV show. This is not a television budget. Now, granted, Doctor Who is like one of the BBC's like crown jewels, so of course they're going to put more money into it. But even then, on the scale they're going, that final onslaught, I was just like, I was so impressed. I was so impressed, and again, this is one of those things that it's one of those things that just never has never it's one of those things that just never ever made me feel like I was being shortchanged on it. They definitely were not literally shortchanging the show. So definite win there. Now, how about the characters? Now, my criticism of Dan Lewis still very much stands in the sense that I'm not really getting much of a story arc from, though I will say we did get a nice emotional resolution with him and his friend, the one who got taken prisoner by the passenger. And I did really, really like how she actually was not idle. The idea that she was actually that she was actually still trying to figure out the mechanics of the thing, which definitely helped when Vinder finally got in there. And seeing inside the passenger was another impressive thing on a production level wise. And it was great seeing how she was able to they were able to outsmart him and get out just with enough time to signal the doctor to save them. But one thing that was consistently set up throughout the season, which definitely, well, apart from Dan getting his reunion with her, when we were introduced to Belle, and and I got to keep giving Chibnall credit when he's on point. Uh, One thing he has been great at with the season is introducing new characters that have actually been very engaging that I actually really care about. And Belle was one of those characters that when he established her, I you didn't know her from Adam. She kind of came in a little late, but you didn't care just because she actually was a very likable character and a very endearing character, and she had a very good arc all throughout, and you really were rooting for her all the way through. And then they do such a good job establishing her, and they did a great job with Vinder as a character as far as his pursuits. That when they come together, that is a beautiful moment. That is a exceptionally beautiful moment. And then the fact they time it perfectly for their moment, and Dan with his friend, and then just a good scene. Just overall is a good scene and a great payoff for the audiences who invested time in them. Now, the other aspect of Vinder, which we do need to discuss, is specifically the Grand Serpent. Now, I did like the way it ends for the Grand Serpent, where the Grand Serpent winds up being exiled. Because if there's one thing you do with a potentially great Doctor Who villain, is that you don't kill him outright. Ah, sorry, I'm sitting on the ground here. Mm, it's not much fun. I didn't have anything that was the right height so I could sit in a regular chair. So one of these days, I need to get a TV tray. I need to get a TV tray. So the problem with the Grand Serpent I was noticing is that apart from now, I will say I loved everything as far as his whole history with Unit. I love that. I loved it because it did help really fix one thing that I was not happy about that Chibnall did with Unit. But I'm happy they did that and they fixed it. They explained it, and even more so, we got to see the side of the characters we actually care about, as far as Kate Stewart and her attitude to the fact that Unit got defunct, but and we see that the whole reason he did that was to weaken Earth's defenses, so that way the Centaurans could take over. But then he says that his whole end game was to inevitably betray the Centaurans so he can take over the Earth as I guess as valuable real estate or something. I don't know, but you never really get to see that angle of his plan come to fruition because, of course, their plan gets completely the Centaurans' plan gets completely blown out of the water anyway. So not really much in the way of a payoff with him. So if you whittle it back, you do kind of wonder what the hell purpose the Grand Serpent really had in the grand scheme, and it hurts because Vinder was so tied. His vendetta against him was so tied with that as well. At least with Vinder, you had the compelling thing with him and Bell that honestly you wonder if you really needed the Grand Serpent, and that's a shame. But fortunately, and I think this is where Chibnall's strengths were in this season. He did such a good job making the characters interesting just by their mere personality and their quirks alone, that there's a part of me not really banking as much on story or as far as what they contribute to the grand scheme of the season as a whole. And if they're alluding to the idea that the Grand Serpent could be a mainstay villain later on down the line, I'm okay with that because fortunately the actor is exceptionally good. He is threatening. I mean, I will say the whole shtick that he has of um, projecting those weird spiky snakes or the little psychic graboids inside them and making them come out. It is a pretty chilling image, and you could. And fortunately, the actors who he does it to are able to sell how painful that is, including the one member of Unit's resistance. You didn't really get much of that in there, so yeah, that's fun. Kate Stewart's like this big threat that is pissing him off, but you don't really see much of her efforts. Um, which, yeah, you don't see much of it. But I guess you just know Kate Stewart so well that you just take it on faith that yeah, she's going to be a thorn in his side because again, she's a Lethbridge Stewart. That's all there is to it. I suppose that's again it's I suppose because of all of my years watching Doctor Who and just knowing just certain things just go without saying. That's one of those things that I always figured was going to go without saying was the idea that Kate Stewart was always going to be a thorn in uh, anyone's side, whoever was going to be trying to take over the world. So I was kind of I kind of just brushed that little bit off. Um, Yaz is another one that should definitely be talked about. Now, I think it's a good thing that Survivors of the Flux really got to showcase her capabilities as a companion, because apart from that amazing scene at the very end, she is kind of just there to do her part, and she does her part very, very well. But I don't. But apart from that last really great scene, which does do a great callback to the beginning of this season, as far as Yaz's frustration with the Doctor, and as far as like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing all these crazy things? You got to start talking to me. Um, it does bookend the season particularly well, but there's not much in way of build up to that bit, um, as far as that goes. But I feel Survivors of the Flux kind of carried that weight anyway, so I didn't mind so much. The episode didn't really saddle itself with that concern because they had a prior episode to do that anyway. Now, oh, this hurts. Mhm. I'm suffering from my art. Ow. Ah. So, the next big thing, um, Swarm and Azure. Now, their demise was definitely could be described as. I would have said it was anticlimactic. Yes, like just they just get disintegrated. Except for one thing, which I really freaking love. I'm a big fan of when a villain gets their demise, and they have a sense like they enjoy it. One there was there was a Centauran death in the Poison Sky where one of them gets shot and he just is like glorious. And I was like, yeah, that's actually kind of sick when a villain is actually totally getting off on this. And I did like how Swarm and Azure, even though they failed and they failed in their mission, I liked how uh, the embodiment of time themselves erases them, and they're like, "We're ascending," um, in a roundabout way. The funny thing, if there was any villain as far as their modus operandi that I would associate Swarm and Azure with, funny enough, it's kind of reminds me of you're gonna love this Azrael in Dogma. The idea that because Azrael experienced hell for so long, he becomes so enraged with that concept that he decides, "Fuck it, I'm gonna just wipe existence." Wipe out existence. I'd rather not exist than go back to hell. And when I thought about that, that's definitely put all of Swarm and Azure's modus operandi into perspective. The whole thing they want to do is unleash time, because now we are seeing time is pretty much this cruel overlord. The idea that, and part of the major purpose that the Time Lord served was to rein in time and control it, so that way time didn't run wild. If time ran wild, things would probably decay at accelerated rate. There seemed to be like this idea that if time were ever unleashed, the entire universe would basically collapse into entropy 20 times faster. It's stuff that actually has been alluded to in Doctor Who, going all the way back to Legopolis. Just the idea that entropy is this ever-present force that pretty much ravages all of us. And but what would happen if the concept of and entropy, of course, is fueled by time itself. But what would happen if time were ever let loose? And and that was a fascinating concept. And I like the idea that we obviously are not going to be that this is not I like that this is not going to be a one-time thing with this villain. And I did like the ominous warning to the Doctor, the idea that the Doctor has pretty much become so much of a pivotal cornerstone in the universe that everyone that she's pretty much pissed off so many people in the universe that obviously there's going to be a big backlash against the Doctor, and that the time's going to come when the Doctor is going to face some sort of ending. This has been associated with the with Trenzalore, with he will knock 5 times, or he will knock 4 times. Bad Doctor Who fan. Bad Doctor Who fan. He will knock 4 times. Um, I'm prepared for this to be another fake out, like what they did with the 4 times, where it turned out to be Wilf. Which, to its credit, even though it did segue into David Tennant just turning into a total whiner, I will say that the twist that it turned out to be Wilf was pretty amazing. I dug that immensely. But so I'm wondering if this is going to be another fake out to that effect, or I mean, this is kind of I mean, the ominous nature of this being the Doctor's final death is akin to, Trent's lore with the 11th Doctor, where the Doctor was being told that this is where the Doctor's destined to die, and then through some wonderful loophole, something else happens. I don't know. But I mean, it's gonna be another year before we find that out because I believe Jodie's finale will be the New Year's next year. Um, I don't know. We'll have a long while to wait for that, but at the same time, though, take time. Take the time. I will say this: the one now in the lead into Flux, I won't lie, I was kind of just going through the motions. I was feeling like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna watch it because I love Doctor Who and I'm always gonna love it. And I'm just gonna watch it so that way I can always be appraised on what's going on in it." And yes, I am still an advocate for the timeless child. And I will say thank you, Flux, for delving deeper into this idea and hopefully give it and I like the fact that he's rooted it into such a massive thing that it's gonna be pretty if ever any writer's gonna try to retcon it, it's gonna be kinda difficult. I will say this, actually, I will actually add this because I feel this is the most important thing now that I feel like we can talk about it, the fob watch. Now we know the fob watch will contain the Doctor's, lost memories from all the years they lost prior to the Hartnell prior to Hartnell. I'm I loved it, and I love the moment where at the dead end, the Doctor, looks like she's about to open it, and she has every reason to. But going back to what the Doctor learned at the end of the or going back to the revelation the Doctor had about themselves at the end of the Timeless Child, what Dr. Ruth said to her, the idea that has whatever you were in the past really stopped you from being the person you are? And I liked that she takes that lesson to heart right here in that moment when she looks at this watch and thinks about what different how different will she become with the revelations of with the remembrance of everything that came before, and does she truly want that? Because how does she feel about herself now? And let's face it, the Doctor right now is wonderful. The Doctor is this effervescent positive force for life in the universe, and I love that time is saying, like, everyone's, like, all saying, everything's got to end, everything's all crazy, everything's chaos, but you keep insisting on prolonging life. You keep insisting that everything's got to go on. You're the one who just keeps going around saving everybody. And there are so many people who just can't stand that. Everyone's getting and I like the idea that everyone's getting frustrated with the Doctor, that the Doctor keeps insisting that, that life must go on. And I can see the idea that it's welling to a bubbling point, that she has stood in the way of so many madmen and monsters and people who just want to control everything. That I like the idea that these forces are going to amass to strike back at the Doctor. But digressing, I loved how in that moment when she's looking at the watch and she's tempted, but I love what she does afterwards. And the reason why this works is not even the possibility that Chibnall might explore it later, but with Russell T Davies taking over and the fact that this is still exists down there, it does two things. One, it leaves a wealth of possibilities for whatever enterprising writer decides to take advantage of this. It'll always be there. It's something that they can keep in their pocket for use later on because as I said before in the my top 10 things about the timeless child, is that this could potentially, expand the playing field to a whole valley of story ideas. So it's nice that they have this little gateway in the form of this watch now stashed in the center of the TARDIS. But the other thing that I feel has always been important to Doctor Who, and I like that, and one of my favorite eras of the show as a whole was the Seventh Doctor era, principally because their whole goal was to try to bring back mystery to the character. I liked very much in the way they constantly tease the Doctor's parentage and um, the Doctor's name. That basically the way they tease a lot of those questions that not only can't be, won't be answered, but shouldn't be answered. I like that they're treating this with that same level of gravitas. The idea that not everything about the Doctor should ever be said. Let's live with the fact that there are more mysteries about the Doctor, but let us connect with the fact that the Doctor, much like that the doctor, much like their the companions, now the doctor doesn't know a lot of things about herself, just as much as the companions don't know much about the doctor. And that's the thing I keep insisting to people. It's like, guys, this puts the doctor on the same level as the audience. Now there's a whole everlying mystery in the whole question of Doctor Who. It's kind of wonderful, and I am totally enamored with that. And I don't think I could ever fall out of love with Doctor Who ever. Yes, I mean, it will be I mean, sometimes it won't be my top priority, but it's always gonna be with me forever and ever and ever and ever. So, it'll always be. And Doctor Who Flux, yeah, it's not perfect. There are but the thing is it still picked the right things to leave lingering. It definitely wrapped up things in ways that I'm satisfied with. I'll definitely say in Chibnall's run, I would definitely say it's the best finale he's done, you know, bar none. So that's definitely a plus. It's definitely much more climactic than Ranskor of Kolos, and definitely much more set. And I would say definitely much more. I can imagine this one being more crowd pleasing than Timeless Children, even though I was very pleased with Timeless Children. Um, no idea what's going to happen in these next specials. I mean, fortunately, we don't have long to wait for the New Year's special. New Year's special, it still feels wrong, Chibs. Um, so we'll just have to wait and see there. So in the meantime, Doctor Who Flux, definitely a worthy notch in the cap of Chibnall's run, and definitely a big win for Jody Whitaker. She was really on fire this season. And oh, yeah, more Carvanista, please, especially now. Poor puppy. That poor puppy just lost his entire species. That Carvanista just became the pizza dog of Doctor Who. You know, you gotta take the puppy in. Take that puppy in. You know, he's lonely now. He doesn't have people anymore. You take that puppy and you make him a companion. Oh, and you find out that he's a companion. And you find out that whole thing. And oh, that's something I sorry, I thought I was wrapping up, but I gotta say this. It's one thing that the doctor doesn't remember everything from her past, but then when she finds out that Carvanista actually used to be Dr. Root's companion, and the fact that Carvanista actually recognized the doctor and unfortunately is unable to say anything for fear of death, I think that's worse. And that makes Carvanista even more tragic of a character. Bad enough that now that he's the last of his kind, but even sadder is the fact that he can't 100% connect with the doctor the way he used to because he'll die. And that is freaking tragic. And the poor puppy, give that dog high grade Alpo, man. Poor puppy. Anyway, I'm sending this on a depressing note. Anyway, so and I'm saying anyway too many times. So how did you all feel about Doctor Who Flux? That's what the comment section's for. Thank you for joining me for this, and I hope I was entertaining in my own non-edited sort of way. Now, I guess while I still have you, keep tabs on Narcotic Casserole. We're going to have more Christmas programming coming up this year. We have another Doctor Who Christmas episode review. We have a new edition of Deep Cuts, which is going to premiere on Christmas Day. We're going to have a new Christmas comfort flicks that I'm doing with Lynn, a special one, kind of a sequel to one we did last year, but I'll let surprise you with that, and a new Christmas rare delicacy that I'm bringing Rob back for because last year he did we did the 3615 review. We're doing the other one. We're doing another Christmas rare delicacy together. So keep your eyes on that. So in the meantime, like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served. Where's the freaking camera? Oh, there. Oh, right. I gotta do. I gotta keep the face because you gotta click the end.